Namaskar, welcome back to Media Scan. Viewers, for many weeks now, we have been following the developments in West Asia very keenly. Very recently, after many weeks of military action and that horrific attack following October 7th by the Hamas, a sliver of hope has risen as Israel has agreed for a short-term ceasefire, which will be followed by release of hostages, the first tranche of hostages to be released, and similarly, Palestinian prisoners from the Israeli side. The question is this peace going to hold? Will more hostages be released in the coming days, as also prisoners of the Palestinian from Israel's side? And what does this mean for long peace or a lasting peace in West Asia in the coming days? Also, what does it mean for the India-Israel relations, which are robust to say the least? To know all these, none other than the Israeli ambassador in India, Naor Gilon. You have been listening to him on the media, reading his comments for a long time, but today he will be able to tell us firsthand what is going on in his host country and what it means for the rest of the world. Ambassador Gilon, so kind of you to find time for us at such a crucial time. Welcome to Media Scan. Namaskar.
Thank you for having me.
Ever since that horrific attack happened, Israel has maintained a position that we are going to wipe out Hamas and we will not rest until then. So the obvious question in people's mind is how and under what circumstances and when did you actually agree to give this break in the military action? And how did this question of release of hostages come about, considering there was no progress for a long time?
It's a very good question, I must say, because it's part of the debate also happening in Israel. The cabinet set two targets really for our IDF, for the defense forces. One target was to eliminate Hamas regime and capacity in Gaza, and the second one was to bring back the hostages. They are equally important, and the ceasefire is only on the background of that because that was the demand of Hamas. They probably needed their time to also to rearm and refresh, and we know that. We are not naive about it, but we think that it's more important to have the hostages brought home, even if it will give them some breathing space. So we agreed for a 4-day ceasefire in return for the release, and we agreed also to release on our side on a ratio of 3-to-1. So for every Israeli hostage released, 3 Hamas or Palestinians will be released. And if they will add, now we spoke about 50 in the first group of released, women and children mainly. We have children from 9 months old there to elderly people of 85 plus. Yes. So all of that, we agreed that if there will be, for every more 10 people they would release, we will give another day of ceasefire. That's the agreement now. So it's not changing the targets. It's a pause, you can call it, in order to enable this exchange, releasing the hijacked. And once it's ending, our full intent is to go back and reach the target of elimination of Hamas from Gaza.
Ambassador, is it also true that there was widespread worldwide outrage when the attack by the Hamas happened, and people were completely shocked and horrified by the kind of, the nature of the brutality of the attack? But subsequently, with those images of people dying in Gaza and the nearby areas, and particularly civilian areas being targeted, people having to leave their homes, children dying, somewhere down the line, world opinion has been shifting, and there was a lot of call for cessation of the violence. The fact that a lot of people died on October 7th and 8th, but then many times the number have already been killed in Palestine, and perhaps that could have prompted this rethink on the Israeli Defense Forces part on your country?
I would start by saying that many were sympathizing with Israel on October 7th, not everyone. Not every. It's very important to emphasize that, because many of those who are criticizing Israel now for human rights situation, humanitarian situation, are people that if you go down their Twitter or whatever, and you look on October 7th, they said nothing. This is a hypocrisy, and I saw it in many countries, including in India, I must say. The official line, Prime Minister Modi, we have to remind everyone, on the day of October 7th, in the afternoon, before even the full scale of what happened was clear, he came out with a very strong condemnation for the attack against terror and everything. And this we will not forget, and we really appreciate, and it's consistent. So since then, in every forum, in the BRICS, in the G20, whenever they spoke, it was always there. Of course, trying to help the Palestinian humanitarian, calling for two-state solution, which is the traditional position, no problem. Once you were on October 7th with us in this tragic day, you bought a moral place by the table to speak also on the Palestinian side of it. Now that's the Israeli side. Going to the Palestinian side, I don't know the real figures because it's very hard. Hamas is the one giving the figures. And for example, we know that we killed...
No, one second. Are you doubting or questioning the veracity of the numbers that have come out from the Gaza side? Some say it is 14,000 plus, whatever.
I cannot doubt and I cannot verify the numbers because I know that Hamas is there. For example, Hamas, they are all civilians. No one speaks, for example, we know that on the first day, we killed more than 1,000 terrorists who infiltrated Israel. More than 1,000. But no one gives figures of terrorists. Since then, of course, we are fighting terrorists and we killed many, many more. So there is no distinction even if you say, look at that. So I have no ability to accept the numbers or not accept them because I have no base of information.
Very interesting.
But the point is, the more important point is that if you look also historically, the system of Hamas was very simple. They used to go sting Israel and run back and hide behind civilian population. They know they cannot compete with Israel in the open battlefield, so there is no equality there. Israel has two good reasons not to kill civilians. First of all, we are human beings, and secondly, if we kill civilians, there is more pressure on us. Hamas is exactly the other way around. Hamas has an interest because the more civilians that are killed, there is more outrage and more pressure on Israel to stop it.
But what about the moral question that innocent victims, particularly children, are losing their lives because you fear or you doubt that there may be a couple of terrorists amidst them?
I will tell you, if we do not eliminate, we have to protect ourselves and make sure that Hamas does not have the ability in the future to execute ISIS type of, the ideology is ISIS. One has to understand. And we have to make sure it doesn't happen. And we have to eliminate Hamas. So we cannot tell them, oh, because they are hiding behind the civilian population, we have to stop the operation, let them arm and have the ability to execute this type of operation against Israel. So it has to be eliminated one way or another. We are trying to minimize the civilian casualties. This is, as I said, it's our interest as human beings and as Israelis who need to do and take an action. And that's what we are trying to do.
Okay,
we found under the hospital, for example.
Yes, the hospital example, quickly.
El Shifa, under the main hospital, tunnels, their headquarters there. The kidnapped were in the hospitals. Now the CEO of the hospital is arrested for interrogation because he knew, there were hundreds of soldiers around there, or Hamas terrorists around there. And he knew about it. There is no doubt because it was really part of the structure of the hospital. So this is part of the things we have to deal with. And we didn't shoot, by the way, we took the hospital over without shooting even one shot in the hospital itself.
There are conflicting reports, some saying that some of the ammunition and bombs, etc., that were shown to be hidden in tunnels and in the basement of the hospital could quite possibly have been planted by the Israeli forces.
Yeah, but okay, we live in an interesting world that facts do not matter anymore. That's the problem. So disinformation, misinformation, alternative truths, whatever you call them, this is what rules.
Misinformation, the disinformation war, that has been a very important element of this entire conflict from day one, from the very day when the Hamas attack took place. But before that, Ambassador, there is one issue on which there's a lot of talk since that news came, just ahead of the anniversary of the horrible Mumbai attack. which is labeled as the worst terror attack on Indian soil ever, there has been an announcement, a unilateral announcement from the Israeli side that you have declared the Lashkar-e-Taiba as a terrorist organization for on the Israel side, even though your statement says very clearly that the policy is to make such declarations only about those terror organizations who are active either in Israel or around your borders. So what prompted you to take this unilateral announcement, number one? And secondly, since this is media scan, and we have been reading a lot of speculation in the media which says, is this also in anticipation that you would like the government of India to declare Hamas as a terror organization, even when we have a similar position in India that we only make such declarations in the context of those organizations which have perpetrated an attack on Indians or Indian soil?
So it's a very good question. Another one. My deputy really came up with the idea of Lashkar-e-Taiba 5-6 months ago.
Okay.
We found out that it was not done, and so we spoke to Israel, said it's a procedure. To put in, it doesn't take a week or two. It's a few organizations that have to agree, and there is a procedure of announcing it and whatever. So we did it, and we decided up front, before we understood what's going to fall in October 7th, we decided to do it towards the 15th year to the Mumbai attacks.
Yes.
So it coincided with the attack, but by coincidence. But irrespectively, we do ask, officially we asked, and also in the media, India to recognize Hamas as a terror organization, and I can also explain why. Because if you saw in Kerala that Khaled Mashal, for example, one example, why is it relevant for India? Okay. By the way, Lashkar-e-Taiba was relevant for us, the biggest population of non-Indians who died in the attack and were targeted.
Yes, yes.
Chabad House were targeted. Yes. 6 Israelis and another 2 American Jews in the Taj, I believe. 8 Jews in general, 6 Israelis out of them. Died in the attack, the biggest, I think, non-Indian group.
So technically, Israelis were very much victims of that attack. We know all that happened in the Chabad house. So you are saying that it was in keeping with your established norms.
Yeah, it's for us, I will tell you, it's only symbolic, as we said in our announcement. I'll tell you why symbolic. Because if we would know that a terrorist from Lashkar-e-Taiba or any other organization that is harming our friends is doing something wrong, financing, whatever it is, we would go against it, regardless if it's in the list or not. Because one should do that, because we should unite. As Prime Minister Modi ji said, we have to, terrorism is global. We have to unite against terrorism. Because also the war that Israel, I'll go back to a little bit to Hamas afterwards, but also the war that Israel is conducting now, people have to understand, it's against ISIS. In a way, the ideology of this ISIS. Now, the Americans in the coalition, they fought ISIS in Iraq, in Syria, and they were able, these people, you cannot kill the ideology. You can only kill people who carry the ideology is very strong in them. That was one of the misconceptions of Israel, I think, for a very long time.
No, so to put it in simple terms, in one line, you are apprehensive that the Hamas, which is basically active in your home country, can become a threat for a larger area in Asia, and it might reach up to India. Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to say about India yes or no. It can go anywhere in the world, I believe, because it's, you give backwind, you give the copycat, you give the feeling that it can be done, that there is someone now holding the flag, let's join them. And you see a lot of demonstrations around the world, you understand that. But you brought me to India, and I think I wanted to close the circle on the Hamas that I started saying. Khaled Mashal in Kerala,
yes.
When he, in the first week, I think, after the event, he came online and said to many thousands of Indians there, he said to them a few things, he said many things, but one of them he said, go out to the streets and the squares and demonstrate for Gaza for us. Secondly, he said, prepare for jihad in Israel. But he said in Israel, but when you prepare to jihad, it's a state of mind that no one wants his people around to be there. And third, he called for help financing the resistance, as they call themselves. So it's terror financing. There are all the elements. So if Hamas would have been here in the list of terror, surely it was illegal. The whole episode would have been illegal and probably prevented.
Yes, so I get that argument. But sir, You were just discussing about the Prime Minister being one of the first world leaders who came out strongly in support of Israel when the attack happened, even when the entire scale of the attack was not very clear to the world. And yet, since then, India has made it very clear that we stand by our established position of the two-state solution for West Asia, and we have been active in sending aid to the people of Palestinians. More recently, we've just sent another tranche of the aid. And in this concluding session of the G20, it was made very clear that we look for complete ceasefire. And more importantly, India has been stressing that people should not be harmed. So innocent civilians, the harm should not come to them. And they have also called upon Israel to be mindful of the fact. In totality, Ambassador, in all these 7.5 weeks, how do you see India's position starting from the first day of the attack till today? What is your perspective of India's position vis-a-vis the recent conflict?
I think that India was the position did not change in any way, in my eyes. Because the main thing that is leading from the beginning until now, I mentioned it before, is going against terrorism. And why is it so important for us? Because India, like Israel, is a country which suffered terror, fighting terror before, by the way, both of us, you had terror before Mumbai and after Mumbai. We had terror before the attack out of Gaza, October 7, and after we'll still have. But this was a watershed, probably, position. Now, the consistency of India is there in the counterterrorism, putting it in the front. The fact that you're speaking
and in
of
fact,
two-state solution...
Prime Minister was categorical even in the most recent statement, where he said that in the end, he emphasized that terrorism in all forms must come to an end, including in Israel.
And to the second part of what you say, so you spoke about the release of the hostages, which is one of the elements. Military operations are also helping release the hostages because there is pressure on Hamas to stop us. So how do they stop us, or how did they slow us down? By releasing, partially releasing hostages, so we do the ceasefire, for example. So what I want to say, all the other elements that India is speaking about, it's very consistent with the Indian positions. Two-state solution was always there. Humanitarian aid, we are for humanitarian aid. We are the ones who are bringing in the humanitarian, enabling humanitarian aid to come in. We don't have an interest of having a crisis there. But we have a job to do, and we are very determined of doing it, and we are very thankful for the Indian government for being so supportive and understanding of the needs to fight terrorism and release the hostages. And again, the position of India is very consistent with always the position, but it's very important to know, to see that we are not fighting, it's not about the two-state solution. We are not there at all. Hamas does not accept Israel in any borders. This statement that people don't understand the meaning of, from the river to the sea, which means the elimination of Israel, not accepting. This is the Hamas slogan. They don't accept Israel in any border. It's not about two-state solution. They want a one-state solution, clean of Jews. That's the state they want. They don't accept the Jews there, especially not ruling, and this is very, very clear. So two-state solution is something else. This is not it's not a chapter in this. The chapter now is fighting terrorism. When we finish fighting terrorism, we can speak about the future, the solution, what should be done, what shouldn't be done.
Okay. From day one, there have been claims and counterclaims, videos contradicting each other. There is such an information war going on, and certainly Israel worldwide is considered to be the leader in information war. But this time round, it seems the people who have been trying to provoke you and people who are not on the side of the Israel, somewhere do you feel they got an upper hand at the international, at the global levels, because they were able to, showcase the plight of the Palestinian peoples much better than you were able to showcase the extent of the violence that Israelis faced?
So I first of all think that the problem of disinformation, misinformation, which is derived especially from the social media, where there is no screening, nothing is screened. You can put whatever you want. The way you show it on TikTok is more important than what you say on Tiktok. If it's presented well, it will catch, regardless if it's true or false. This should worry all of us. It's not connected to Israel. Now it's us. We will overcome that, by the way. We will overcome because we are fighting for our survivability. It's not that we have any alternative. We have to win this war if we want to exist in Israel in the future, because if we will be perceived as weak and vulnerable, we will not be able to survive. So there is a big problem in the world of disinformation, misinformation, lack of information, lack of background of people. If we lost your good question, and again, it will come back to bite every one of us, you, us, everyone else, because it's there.
You agree that with the onset of social media and everybody having a device which shows all kinds of things without any filter, you believe a new front has been opened for everyone, not just Israel?
For a long time. I think that this ability, I always say that, you can have a law professor on Twitter and X. You can have a law professor who studied all his life and worked in law for 30 years, and you can have his driver. Now there is a murder trial, okay? And the professor, who is very, knowledgeable, would tell you on the one hand, on the other hand, will write a very long series of tweets because he wants to pass a very sophisticated message. But his driver will say, the bastard is guilty, kill him, okay? Usually, in my knowledge,
so what is the point?
The point is that you don't have to have knowledge on social media. You just have to be very catchy and things, and that's how it works. But I don't want to avoid your question of we lost the... I think that we have a big problem, but look at the numbers. Israel, how many Muslim countries in the world? 50 plus. How many Jewish countries in the world? 1. What is the percentage of the Jews in the world, just to understand? 0.2%, not 1%, 0.2. We have 15 million people in the world. We have many friends. By the way, if you look at governments, many governments, India is not the only one. US government was very fast on its feet. I can mention many governments, UK, Germany, many, especially democratic countries around the world, understood the bigger threat and the threat to them and came very strongly to be with Israel, to side with Israel. Yeah, on the media, on the social media, I think India, for other reasons, stopped TikTok here quite many years ago, quite a few years ago. So at least we don't have to deal with TikTok here in India. It's one less worry for us, but there are enough trouble from others.
For the longest time, we have been the victims of jihadi terror. We have had the worst of attacks possible. Now, in the light of what has happened on October 7th, do you think countries like India, who have been victims of terror for a long time, the world might become more sensitive to our situation, considering what happened in your part of the world?
I think the answer is yes, but I also think that the answer is that India in the last few years has become a most significant country in the world in the ability to influence the need to consider Indian positions. So I think that what you said 15 years ago and what you say now is perceived in the world in a different way. You are, as a country, much stronger. And so I think that terrorism in general, there are few countries, Israel, India, US, that are not tolerant to terrorism, whatever kind it comes. So, and we cooperate, by the way, India and Israel cooperate on counterterrorism it's not in the public knowledge because it's not relevant, but when each of us has information that is relevant for the other, we always share it. So it's a very open sharing system. So we work together on this, and maybe there is one, if I may insert something you didn't ask, one of the reasons we had all this mess now is the fact that West Asia has been changing the last 3 years for the better. I mean, we believe for the better. I think India and Israel and India. What happened is the Abraham Accords 3 years ago brought UAE and Bahrain closer to Israel with peace accords, and then Morocco, and now Saudi Arabia was supposed to join. There were advanced talks, and one of the reasons that the extremists came out, and out of that, by the way, there were also fruits for the population. One of them was I2U, to the India, Israel, US, UAE economic projects. The other was IMEC, that was already announced now by India and others during the G20 here, which is doing a corridor, sea and land corridor from India through Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, Mediterranean. And all of that, the other people didn't like it. Who are the other people? Iran is the main actor there. Because if you look, Iran has 4 military arms in our region. All 4 of them are engaging Israel. And military arms are in the sense of now are engaging Israel. All military, they train them, they finance them, they equip them. So you have Hezbollah in Lebanon. You have the Shiite militias in Syria, Iraq and Syria, I should say, and then you have Hamas, which is Sunni but still very close to Iran, and you have the Houthis in Yemen. All four of them are engaging Israel at this time.
The entire Abraham Accord attempt is now in the cold storage?
No, I think on the contrary. It's on the cold storage in the sense that maybe atmosphere in the Muslim world today is not accommodating. But if you look at the interest just grew stronger because you saw how brutal are the enemies. These Muslim Brotherhood elements and the jihadist elements, they are the risk. I mean, Muslim Brotherhoods are the Morsi in Egypt, his opposition, the people who against the regime. You look at in the Gulf countries, these people are the bad people and even if you see that now Iran, which is, everyone is nervous of Iran in that region, but the Houthis, the enemies of the Saudis, are engaging Israel. What do you think, that the Saudis are happy from everything that is happening? I'm sure they are not. So if you ask, the interest that united us and made us go to the Abraham Accords and get together, after things calm down, they become even stronger because the threats are becoming more tangible.
Okay, Ambassador. Yes. So very interesting that you pointed it out because it has been in the back of mind of everybody ever since this conflict started. But quickly, sir, in one line, is there hope that this 4-day cessation of action that has been announced might hold for a longer time?
I hope not, because we don't want a ceasefire. We want to eliminate Hamas. If we do a ceasefire, Hamas will not be eliminated. If we do a ceasefire, the hostages, the rest of the hostages will not be released. We are determined to go back. We said it very clearly. We are doing now a tactical pause because that was the demand of Hamas to release 50 women and children. We are intending of going back and finishing what we promised to finish. And these are two tasks, as I said in the beginning. Eliminating the ability of Hamas to rule Gaza and releasing all the kidnapped. We have around 240 there. So it's still 50, leaves another close to 200.
And will that mean a release of more Palestinian prisoners on your side?
We said the ratio is 1 to 3 that was decided. Every one Israeli prisoner, hostage released, we will release 3 terrorist prisoners. That's the ratio. We will continue. If they will release 10 more people, there will be 1 more day of ceasefire for every 10. That's the very clear, cold cut, unfortunately, deal. But the aim of eliminating Hamas's rule is the main aim, and we are not going to give it up, not for ceasefire, not for any reason, because if we will do that, we will not be able to survive in West Asia, and we will have more attacks like we saw on October 7th.
Thank you, Ambassador, for being so candid on your country's position with regard to the current hostilities. But we still hope that peace will hold and civilians will get an opportunity to come back to a normalcy of life. But at the same time, your aim of wiping out terror from the region will succeed as much as we want the world to be free of terror. On that note, I have to put an end to this conversation, Ambassador, but thank you again for coming to DD India and sharing your perspective with us at such a crucial time. Namaskar.